Very recently, I had the chance to sit down with the lead developer behind a brand new title on the way called Project Sky. It was a very exciting interview. This is actually going to be the first of a three-part interview because we got to dive into so many different things within this game. Today we talk about the characters within the game world itself, and just the beginning of development, where it all started. Tomorrow we are going to be diving into a whole lot more, but for now, let's get into part one of the interview, shall we?
So, just kind of moving before we actually get into the game itself, just kind of tell me what drove you into development, what kind of what started it all off, what games got you inspired, and what was the first things you kind of got into as a developer?
So, as far as what motivated me to get into developing games and so on and so forth, surprisingly there was never like when there wasn't one specific game. Well, I guess I'd say like the original Crash Band, well, not original Crash Bandicoot, but Crash Bandicoot on the classic Xbox. That was the first one that I ever played, I think, and I was 4 at the time, and it was at that age that I told my parents that I wanted to make games, and that was it.
When did you actually start working on Project Sky? How long has this been a project for you?
So the world has been in development for almost 10 years. Started working on like world building stuff when I entered high school, but as far as like actual development of the game, third quarter of 2018. So just about like, and even then it was on and off until like last year. So I would say about like a year and a half maybe total I put into the game.
Okay, and with it being in the works for so long, I mean, in your imagination for so long as well. I know I probably have this question further down, but how much did it really change from the beginning to kind of where you are at this point? How much did it evolve, or I guess just get drawn back, or whatever that may be?
So in terms of the world, it's changed. I want to say in like 100%, like in every like aspect, multiple times. I would be continually scrapping it and restarting it and thinking, this doesn't exist. This doesn't make sense. How do I explain this or that? But as far as the actual game design is concerned, I didn't have an idea for it until I had that like aha moment back in 2018. And then once I had that, it was just kind of, I know exactly what I want to do with this. Obviously some design stuff is, like changes like a little bit, but like the main concept hasn't strayed far from the original intention.
Gotcha. Okay, and then I know you have the one beta out already. Are you planning like a different phase of betas, or is it just going to be that one until you launch? Do you have a kind of an idea of that yet?
Yeah, I'm currently, since I released Ascension, the first demo, I have been working away at the second one that I'm titling Retaliation, which is meant to be more of, I mean, the first one, I put a focus on like fighting with a bow on Hawkwolf back against like a large creature, whereas this one here is meant to put more of an emphasis on like all like the minutiae and stuff that you'll be doing in the game, like on foot exploration with a variety of different weapons and enemies and so on and so forth. So I am definitely planning to have multiple demo builds leading up to stage 1 release, which is going to be in early access.
Okay, so each demo kind of explores a different kind of area of the game, whether it's a different mechanic or whatever it may be in that sense, basically.
Exactly, and a different quest line, different focus, and so on and so forth.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
So finally getting into the first question then, talk to me about, just because Project Sky, from the looks of it, is just such a massive looking game. It's an open world RPG, that kind of thing. So kind of talk to me about the story in the game. How does it progress as it goes forward? The different cultures within the world itself, the different machines, and just the different things that are kind of going into this open world.
The Skylands it's a world of floating continents held in stasis above an ocean of stars. The game itself takes place on like a single continent called Maya Statum. Up until like recent events, it was populated by indigenous tribes that inhabited the northern half, and they thrived just fine on their own, learning to live with the remnants of false gods that lived long ago. These same false gods left nothing but their mechanical creatures and ruins and such behind, and you'll see these indigenous tribes having learned to live alongside them. But recent events, a technologically advanced force is now moving in from the forsaken southern half, and it is up to a lone human to unite all the tribes under one banner so that they might actually stand a fighting chance. So that's the general plot. So you'll be waging war and exploring old ruins. To put it like extremely generally.
Are you planning the story to be a more linear based story where it's just kind of you go through from beginning to end from A to B, or do you want it to be a more branching out kind of thing where decisions have a major impact on the world and the progression, or do you have multiple endings, that sort of thing?
So we'll say now that the multiple endings haven't decided yet. However, the as far as like the like linearness and so on and so forth, I want to say that the story, I want to as a whole, like the timeline will be rather linear, but the order in which you do things doesn't have to be. That'll make more sense a couple of questions later. But it's so I guess I'll say kind of linear, but ultimately still up to the player to pick when they want to do things.
Gotcha. Okay. And then I guess one smaller branching out question that I actually didn't write down. Looking at the story, where did the inspiration for that come, or the ideas come from? Was there anything that you kind of stemmed from?
So a lot of it was James Cameron's Avatar, blue people, as well as my own fascination with the indigenous peoples of our world. I mean, if you look at Avatar, there's a lot of similarities, in just the whole idea of primitive races fighting off a high tech force, and then the rest of it has just kind of been my own spin. Yeah, no games really that inspired it, despite how similar it is to Horizon Zero Dawn, I swear. But
That actually was
yeah.
going to be my next question, if you pulled any inspiration from that, even given that it's such a new title. But okay, that does make sense
Yeah.
that the Avatar similarities would be there. I like that. Moving into the next question, with an open world, there's a lot of emphasis, obviously, on discovery, exploration, that sort of thing within the world. Talk to me about the actual world itself. How big is it going to be? How much can players explore? And just kind of how varied are the different environments that players are going to be interacting with?
So it'll be big. Hard to say just yet because like the exact measurements of the world are still subject to change, but it'll be vast in order to accommodate for all of the fun ways to travel around while still making sure that it actually feels like a journey. Like you can't just cross an entire valley, in like a split second or something.
Hmm.
So I don't say big just referring to how sprawling the world will be, but also also referring to its verticality. So like there'll be, in addition to the overworld, for lack of a better word, there are maintenance tunnels and cave systems that will intersect and run beneath the surface. In fact, one of the tribes that may or may not exist, as they haven't been seen for generations, live entirely underground. As well, there'll be a variety of underwater ruins and such to discover. So as for how varied it'll be, I'm covering most of the standard biomes, like jungle, alpine tundra, forest, tropical, etc., in the northern half of the continent, and then gradually moving into more hellish and otherworldly ones in the southern half. Because the idea is that one of your overarching goals will be to push to the far south where the false gods once lived, and stuff will get more devastated and desolate as you see what became of their ambition.
Okay. And then another question that actually branches off that comes to mind, is there going to be kind of a seasons format to this game where you'll transition as the game moves forward, or is there going to be like a 24-hour clock within the game, anything like that?
So there's a 24-hour clock, like day and night cycle,
Mhm.
and the seasons will also change.
Gotcha. Okay.
Accordingly.
All right. So talk to me about the characters in the game. This game is very large. It obviously has a ton of them, but talk to me about the main characters, the AI that accompanies them, and just kind of briefly, if you can, go over some of the different characters that you're going to interact with, come across, and that are just going to be within the game itself.
So before I go into detail with the main character, I have to explain the AI companion first. So you create them at the start of the game, along with your player character. You pick their tribe, what their job was in the tribe, and obviously you can customize their appearance and such as well. So the fact that you create this companion is relevant because your character hails from the same faction that you wage war against over the course of the game. You're a refugee seeking asylum in a village belonging to one of these 7 tribes. Your escape ends up going wrong, because of course it does, and you crash into the wilds where you encounter this companion. So the village that you're traveling to at first changes depending on what race your companion is. So you're always going to be like starting the game in their homeland. So you might crash land into the Springbog and be faced with a whole bunch of ravenous Chrythons that'll try to eat you and your assailants. Or you could land in the choking vegetation of Jateric, where instead you'll have to escape the aberrations of flesh and metal that infest the jungle. Player character is a refugee from the faction that you're actually waging war against, and the AI companion is a tribesperson from one of the 7 tribes. And so now, as far as I guess the like other characters that you interact with, it'll primarily be important members of each of the different tribes. You know, some of them are scholars, some are tinkerers, others are weaponsmiths, and so on and so forth. So you'll be interacting with all of them, and without spoiling too much, I'll also say that the false gods disappeared. There's no evidence that they're actually dead.
I would ask this question. With this game, it seems like there is a ton of just backstory and cultural history. Have you ever thought of doing like, when you release the game, will there be any kind of like, I guess, some that have people release the world books with the games? Have you ever thought about doing that?
I have, actually. In fact, I am I am on and off working on a comic that focuses in on one of the tribes, and I would like to have like a little story that just showcases some important parts of each of the tribe's cultures, and that's the kind of thing that I would love to, package and send out there as a collection or something like that.
Can you kind of describe the different tribes and species within the world and kind of touch on, I guess, how many there really are, if you even can, or just how varied they are and how different each is?
So there are 7. I'll say that now. Most of them are based on. Most of them can be referred to as as animals. So you got the wolf tribe, you got the bear tribe, and the otter tribe. They obviously that's not what they're referred to as in game, but I am a fan of. I like the idea of them being recognizable animals in that sense, because it's very easy to characterize. Like, okay, this will be the strong one, this will be the sneaky one, and so on and so forth. So with that said, we've got the Rakuti, which are wolves. We've got the Jirakuti, which are otters. The Arscorel, which are bears. The Nelukora, which are maned wolves. The Jatra, which are jaguars. Oh boy, which one am I forgetting? The Salen are foxes, and the last one is an original race of mine. As far as like the species, I guess. They're called the Sarael, and they're the ones that haven't been seen for generations. And no one's actually sure if they actually exist or if it's all just mythos and folklore, I guess. Defining characteristics for each of them. I'll say the Rakuti are. They have a big focus on self-accomplishments and machine hunting. So like their homeland literally translates to hunters of machines. That's also the title of a lot of the tribes people, like a lot of their jobs. It's like the Velhitari means like the hunters of machines. And so that's their whole shtick. Like if you want to learn how to turn machines that you kill into weapons and stuff, that's who you'd want to go to. They're most recognizable by the fact that they have like full body markings that basically tells the whole story of it tells someone's entire life basically, if you know how to read them anyway. Next, the Jirakuti, the otters. They're builders. They're also like the second most friendly of all of them, but with a bit of a dark past for reasons, trying to keep everyone out of these waterlogged ruins in the center of their territory for reasons that they haven't disclosed. So they saw something spooky down there, and now they're trying to keep people out. So very friendly on the exterior, but sort of harboring something spooky. The Arscorel, the bears. These are your blacksmiths. They're your big, bulky tanks that descend down from the mountains in times of strife in pairs, with bearing giant pole maces and shoulder-mounted artillery cannons and such. So like they're your tanks. There's no other word for them.
Is it fair to say that each tribe has a really, really specific impact on driving the stories forward in a specific way?
Yes, it is most definitely fair to say that. They all have something to offer, something that'll help you in the fight. So that's why they have such clearly defined strengths and characteristics like that.
Okay, okay. And then so outside of the three that we discussed, how many others are there?
There's 4 more.
And there you have it. That is part 1 of part 2 debuts tomorrow. We are going to be talking about the combat within the game. We're going to be talking about traveling within the world in Project Sky. We're going to be diving into a whole lot more. So definitely make sure you show up tomorrow for that interview. It's going to be very exciting. But until next time, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. As always, I am Nick Lehner. This is The Side Quest, and I will see you next time. Take it easy.
When this is what? You gotta finish your sentence. Over.
That's it. My sentence is over.
Your sentence is what?